And welcome, I'm Andy Mioch and you are watching A News. Let's have a look at the headlines. Ukraine targets Moscow with hundreds of drones after a huge Russian attack on Kyiv. Andy Burnham sets out a 10-year plan for the UK as he takes over as Prime Minister. And Yemen's Houthi rebels declare a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia after the recent exchange of fire. Thanks for tuning in. Breaking news now. Azerbaijan has denied any official involvement in reported secret talks between German politicians and Russian representatives held in Baku. Sources close to the Azerbaijani government have confirmed to A News that official Baku had no involvement whatsoever in the secret talks. The gatherings were a strictly private initiative organized entirely at the independent discretion of the participating delegations. The clarification follows media reports by Germany's ARD program Kontrast and Die Zeit, which said several prominent German politicians met Kremlin-linked figures in Baku and Abu Dhabi between 2024 and 2025 as part of unofficial back-channel contacts. The reports have sparked criticism in Germany over the meetings, which allegedly included a Russian official under EU sanctions. Turning now to the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine has launched an unprecedented wave of over 400 drones at the Moscow region and struck multiple Russian vessels in the Black Sea. The massive overnight retaliation comes just hours after deadly Russian missile barrages hit Kyiv and a commercial grain ship near the port city of Odessa.
In a historic overnight assault, Ukrainian drones targeted the Moscow region, striking a major oil depot in Podolsk over 400 kilometers away from the border. The attack forced the evacuation of the Wildberries Logistics Center and injured 2 civilians across residential areas in Domodedovo and Odintsovo. While Russia's defense ministry claims to have intercepted 381 drones nationwide, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces reported a massive victory at sea, hitting 6 Russian vessels, including 2 Shadow Fleet tankers, bringing July's total to 183 crippled ships, alongside drone strikes on 7 power substations in occupied Crimea.
We continue implementing the plan of long-range sanctions against Russia for the war, the oil sector, supplies for the occupying forces, our Ukrainian mid-strikes and long-range strikes. These are our responses.
Kyiv's massive retaliation follows a relentless Russian bombardment. A barrage of over 40 missiles struck the Ukrainian capital on Sunday, while airstrikes in Zaporizhzhia left at least 2 dead, 42 injured, including 8 children. The escalation extends to the Black Sea, where the death toll from a Russian cruise missile strike on a commercial grain ship near Odessa has now risen to 10. On the ground, Moscow claims its forces captured the Vonoye settlement in the Dnepropetrovsk region, as President Zelensky renews urgent appeals for Western allies to accelerate air defense deliveries.
Well, joining us now from Chicago to take a look at the latest surrounding the war is Alec Kasman, Director at the Save Ukraine Now support organization. Alec, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on A News. Following a massive aerial assault on Kyiv, the Russians have, according to Ukrainian authorities, also struck a grain cargo ship in the Black Sea. Is this the type of an escalation that might prompt a strong reaction, not only from Kyiv's allies, but importers of Ukrainian grain in general?
Right. So for the longest time, this is a war of attrition, and each side is doing their best to damage their abilities of the other side to stay in this war. That's why we see attacks by Russians on Ukrainian soil, and Ukraine is returning the same thing. And I very much agree with how President Zelensky put it. Long-range sanctions is the best way at the moment is to limit Russians' ability to wage this war.
And of course, for its part, Ukraine launched one of its biggest drone attacks on Moscow yet. Kyiv also targeted vessels in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. How effective is this, as Zelensky has put it, a long-range sanction campaign in shoring up support for Ukraine?
It certainly is the most effective strategy so far. Ordinary Russians finally get to feel the war coming to their shores, and this is very important because until you change the attitudes inside Russia, this war is going to continue. Of course, there's a huge economic factor, and look, when Russians have to stand in the long lines waiting for gas station, to fill up waiting to fill up their cars at the gas stations, they not only spending 8 hours in line, they're also not going to work. They're not shopping. That certainly puts a lot of toll on the economy over there, and that's important to continue. Russians have to understand that this war is not free to them.
Now, as the war rages on, thousands of Ukrainians took to the streets to voice disagreement with the dismissal of Defense Minister Fedorov. As the protests continue, Zelensky is reportedly weighing offering him a new role to coordinate development of military technology. Do you think that maybe is a viable way out of the crisis?
And look, Ukraine is far from perfect. So that's why we see these tensions happening inside Ukraine. To answer your question, this really depends on the authority Fedorov is going to have on any new position that he's going to be offered. If he is offered a position where it looks good from a distance, but in the reality he is not able to make changes, then obviously this is not going to be a good move. To support these protests, I have to say that Fedorov was the best Minister of Defense Ukraine had in the past, and this dismissal really makes no sense. Fedorov is extremely effective at his role, and he accomplished plenty in a very short time. He's been in this seat for about 6 months, and he has done a great job so far.
There are also reports in Ukrainian media that officials are also discussing the possible replacement of Alexander Syrsky as commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Ukraine's military has denied those reports. Whatever the case may be, how has this entire episode affected Ukrainians both at home and in the diaspora?
Syrsky is not very popular commander, and he has a pretty bad reputation. He's been referred to as a butcher behind the scenes, and most importantly, there are much better candidates for his role. And I believe the best thing President Zelensky can do at this point is replace Syrsky with Beletsky or Dropatov. These are two generals that are mostly mentioned as a possible replacement for Syrsky. Just a little bit more highlight on Syrsky. Syrsky represents an old Soviet army. Fedorov and other generals that are younger and, most importantly, a different school, represent the new, modern, technologically advanced army. And this is one of the challenges in Ukraine right now. And the old Soviet-style army has to go. It has to be replaced with very efficient drone units. Ukraine has newly formed units from former civilians that are extremely efficient. So they should be used as an example, and everything should be focused on modernizing the army. Syrsky is not helping with this change, and again, most people I'm talking to in Ukraine, including the military, believe he needs to go.
And Alec, finally, do you believe that this turmoil, this competition between the old guard and the new, will have any impact on Ukraine's relationship with its Western allies?
I don't think this is going to affect Ukraine in any negative way. Ukraine is a democracy. It is not a perfect democracy, but as you can see, people are able to take it to the streets even during wartime. This is something that, for example, is absolutely impossible in Russia. So, as far as Western leaders should be concerned, this is a welcome change, and they should support it. And I'm talking, of course, about the replacement of Syrskyi, or reinstatement or further for giving further of a role where he can be mostly effective.
And one of the staunchest allies of Kyiv, the United Kingdom, has just gotten its new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, and he pledged to continue British support to Ukraine. Do you expect any perhaps boost in that support, or the same level as before?
It is hard to say about what functionally Britain or any other country can do at this point. This really depends on the bureaucracy over there. Europe certainly is interested in keeping Ukraine in the fight. The most obvious and simple reason: as long as Russia is busy with Ukraine, it will not be going anywhere else in Europe, or at least that's a calculation. So Europe will do everything possible, given again the bureaucracy and they have to deal with as well, to help Ukraine. But going back a little to the 40 plus ballistic missile attacks, one of the reasons there's so much damage from ballistics is there are not enough interceptors, and this is a global problem. Right now, the United States produces about 600 ballistic interceptors a year. As we just talked about, over 40 ballistic missiles were used on a single night in Ukraine. So obviously, it's a shortage that has to do with industrial capacities rather than political decisions. So going back to your question about how much UK can help, it really depends on the actual capacity at hand and how quickly they can move forward with making changes.
Alec, thank you kindly for joining us on A News and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Britain's new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has pledged immediate action to ease the cost of living crisis, promising new support measures to be unveiled this week. Speaking outside 10 Downing Street, Burnham also outlined plans to boost employment, expand affordable housing, and reform welfare as part of a broader 10-year vision for the country.
We will help more young people into work by changing the education system and giving them more support, more mental health support. And we will build more council homes. That is the fair and sustainable way to bring the welfare bill down, to meet our fiscal rules and to honour our commitments on defence to our international partners. We will help people to live well, building a more preventative state, investing in people's success rather than paying for failure. And that work starts now. I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country.
As Burnham promises to reshape the country and tackle the cost of living crisis, many voters on the streets of London say they still know little about the former Greater Manchester mayor or what his premiership will bring.
I think there's quite a bit of still uncertainty. We don't know what he's bringing on board. Personally, I'm just surprised with how many prime ministers we've had in the past couple of years. So I'm just hoping that he will just take up the mantle and do what's best for the people, really, yeah.
The weirdest thing about him is that nobody really knows who he is. Yeah, new guy. I think it's going to end up really small time in the office.
I think, look, it's change. We're going to have to see how it goes. I don't really know him very well, so I'll be interested to learn more about his policies and what he's got planned. So I think nationalisation of steel and how he's going to take that forward, I don't know. So we'll just have to see. I don't know him very well, I'm afraid.
I don't know him, like, personally, but he seems to have a lot of ideas, and he's done good things in Manchester. I know that's a positive thing. I just don't know whether he would do like another election. I don't know. Yeah, and there's a lot of problems around the world. I don't know who can solve them all.
Leaning into the left a little bit more, maybe less like trying to win over reform voters, and just normal progressive good policies, I guess. That's it. Yeah, investment, that kind of thing.
Returning to our breaking news now, Azerbaijan had reported secret talks between German politicians and Russian representatives held in Baku. Sources close to the Azerbaijani government have confirmed to A News that official Baku had no involvement whatsoever in the secret talks. The gatherings were a strictly private initiative organized entirely at the independent discretion of the participating delegations. The clarification follows media reports by Germany's ARD program Kontrast and Die Zeit, which said several prominent German politicians met Kremlin-linked figures in Baku and Abu Dhabi between 2024 and 2025 as part of unofficial back-channel contacts. The reports have sparked criticism in Germany over the meetings, which allegedly included a Russian official under EU sanctions. Coming up, the Houthis announce a blockade of Saudi ports after last week's clashes. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching A News. Starting after the break with Baku again, Azerbaijan has denied any official involvement in reported secret talks between German politicians and Russian representatives held in Baku. Sources close to the Azerbaijani government have confirmed to A News that official Baku had no involvement whatsoever in the secret talks. The gatherings were a strictly private initiative organized entirely at the independent discretion of the participating delegations. The clarification follows media reports by Germany's ARD program Kontrast and Die Zeit, which said several prominent German politicians met Kremlin-linked figures in Baku and Abu Dhabi between 2024 and 2025 as part of unofficial back-channel contacts. The reports have sparked criticism in Germany over the meetings, which allegedly included a Russian official under EU sanctions. In other news, Yemen's Houthi rebels have declared a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia after the two sides traded fire last week. The Iran-backed militant group said the maritime embargo is in response to what they describe as Saudi Arabia's continued, unjust, and oppressive siege on the people of Yemen. The blockade puts at risk the flow of millions of barrels that the kingdom exports via the Red Sea.
The Yemeni armed forces announce a maritime embargo against the criminal Saudi enemy based on the equation of a blockade for a blockade, and it will enter into force effective immediately upon the issuance of this statement. The Yemeni armed forces affirm their complete readiness for all options, and that any foolishness committed by the reckless Saudi enemy through a full-scale escalation we will confront with a full-scale and harsh escalation by God's will and power.
Iranian officials say they've received plans from mediators for a 10-day ceasefire with the U.S. The document reportedly aims to revive last month's interim truce with Washington. It comes as fresh American strikes hit multiple cities across Iran, including Tabriz.
The US military has significantly widened its offensive on Iran. An attack targeting a military zone southwest of Tabriz left 1 dead and several injured, while multiple sites were hit in Bushehr and Isfahan. The barrage follows strikes on Iran's Darkovin nuclear site, though the International Atomic Energy Agency ruled out radiological hazards. At sea, American forces are enforcing a strict blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, redirecting 6 commercial vessels and disabling another.
We control the strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots.
Despite the Pakistani-mediated ceasefire signed last month completely collapsing, back-channel diplomacy is reviving.
Proposals have been put forward by mediators. We were informed of them and we have received them. However, please allow me to refrain from going into detail at present. Nevertheless, the reality is that the diplomatic service has been working actively in recent days, and certain ideas from a number of mediators have reached us. Yes, this is confirmed.
However, during the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman's briefing on Monday, he added that Tehran firmly denied President Trump's recent claim that an American prisoner in Iran was released as a goodwill gesture. Meanwhile, the tactical theater continues to expand as casualties rise. Official US losses stand at 17 dead, including a recent fatality in northern Iraq and more than 420 wounded. In response, Tehran has activated a Code 110, an emergency protocol for systemic retaliation. Under Operation Nezor 2, the Revolutionary Guards claim local intelligence assisted in targeting US aircraft at Aqaba Airport, while its prior strikes in Jordan are alleged to have killed dozens.
Meanwhile, Washington blames Tehran for the collapse of maritime agreements. Speaking before his departure to the Philippines, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused Iran of violating commitments to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. While Rubio acknowledged receiving diplomatic signals and noted a growing internal split within Iran's leadership over its crippled economy, he warned that American military responses will continue.
What I will say is that the United States always remains open to a diplomatic solution. We've tried multiple times with Iran, and we'll continue to try. If that door opens, we'll be happy to see it open. But and they continue to send signals that they want to talk, that they want to negotiate. But their behavior is what we're responding to. And their behavior is they're launching missiles and drones against ships.
Despite the approach from mediators to unblock the standoff with Washington, Iran says it will continue defending its sovereignty as long as the United States continues with its strikes. A News' Suraj Shiralilu reports from the Iranian Foreign Ministry.
Iran's Foreign Ministry confirmed that it has received overtures from regional mediators suggesting a de-escalation in the ongoing military standoff between Tehran and Washington. Spokesman Ismail Baghai made the announcement in his weekly press briefing on Monday, but did not disclose any details. He did say, however, that Tehran strongly condemned the new wave of strikes on civilian infrastructure, including bridges and water installations in southern Iran, stating that no claim can justify such attacks on non-military targets. In a question on remarks made by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio that Washington is still open to diplomacy with Tehran, the Iranian diplomat replied that if the U.S. pursues the policy of intimidation and aggression, Iran will continue to respond with force to uphold its sovereignty. Baghai also condemned the attack on Iran's power plant in Dar Khoain, which is under construction in Khuzestan province. He urged the international community to condemn attacks on nuclear sites under the UN verification. The Iranian spokesman also urged regional countries to stop providing their soil and airspace to the US for launching attacks on Iran. When asked about President Donald Trump's claim on releasing a jailed American in Iran, Baghai said that, according to the Iranian judiciary, no individual bearing identification announced by US officials has been jailed for espionage. He also despised remarks by the US chief executive on plans to occupy Iran's islands in the Persian Gulf. The spokesman confirmed that a high-ranking Iraqi delegation will visit Iran on Thursday for bilateral and regional discussions, but did not confirm whether the Iraqi Prime Minister's visit has an agenda of mediation between Tehran and Washington. The Iranian diplomat then congratulated Spain's national football team for winning the FIFA 2026 World Cup championship. According to Baghai, Iran welcomed Spain's win because Madrid opposed the Israeli-US military attacks on the Islamic Republic. Turaj Shiralilu from Iranian Foreign Ministry for A News.
Over in India, thousands of supporters of the so-called cockroach movement have attempted to march on Parliament in Delhi, demanding the resignation of the education minister. It comes after exam papers for the country's biggest medical school were leaked, forcing over 2.5 million students to retake the test. One government minister has called for the demonstrations to be called off. But the protesters have received support from opposition figures who have criticized what they say is a heavy-handed police response. The campaign gathered momentum over the weekend after a leading activist began an indefinite hunger strike and was taken to hospital. Analysts say the movement reflects growing anger among young people over unemployment and corruption in India. In Japan, around 25,000 people gathered outside Parliament in Tokyo on Sunday to protest against the government's plans to expand the country's military. Demonstrators are opposing proposals to revise Japan's pacifist constitution and relax restrictions on arms exports, as well as move away from the country's long-standing non-nuclear principles. Critics accused Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's government of pressing ahead with the reforms despite a fall in approval ratings. Pakistan's finance minister is in Washington to resume trade negotiations as Islamabad seeks lower tariffs on its exports and greater American investment. The talks are expected to shape the next phase of economic relations between the two countries. Mariam Zia reports from Islamabad.
Pakistan's Finance Minister Mohammad Awanzib arrived in Washington on Saturday for a three-day visit, where Pakistan and the United States resume trade negotiations on Monday. Awanzib is scheduled to meet officials from the Office of the United States Trade Representative, the U.S. Export-Import Bank, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, and the International Monetary Fund. The two countries are expected to discuss possible bilateral trade agreement covering tariffs, market access, investment, and economic cooperation. The talks followed tariff measures announced by President Donald Trump on the 2nd of April 2025, which initially imposed a 29% tariff on Pakistan's exports. Officials from both sides are now seeking a broader trade agreement aimed at lowering trade barriers and expanding bilateral investment. Mariam Zia, A News, Islamabad.
Elsewhere, violence has erupted in Buenos Aires after Argentina's World Cup final defeat to Spain. Clashes broke out between fans and riot police after the national team's 1-0 defeat in extra time. Police used tear gas and arrested 15 people as supporters threw stones and bottles in the city center, with the unrest forcing the closure of several main roads. On the pitch, scuffles broke out between the two sets of players after Ferran Torres scored a 106th-minute winner for the Spanish team. Despite the clashes, President Javier Milei announced plans for a national holiday to honor the team's runners-up finish, with the date to be confirmed in due course. Dozens of people are feared dead after a ferry carrying 133 on board capsized off the coast of Guyana late on Saturday. Authorities said 67 people, including 15 children, were rescued, but no other survivors have been found. The vessel, with 17 crew members, went down while traveling from the capital, Georgetown, to the coastal village of Port Kaituma. It's claimed that a number of those traveling on the ferry were not recorded on the passenger list, which has complicated the rescue operation.
Here and leading the team from the Ministry of Health.
Well, returning to our breaking news, any official involvement in reported secret talks between German politicians and Russian representatives held in Baku. Sources close to the Azerbaijani government have confirmed to A News that official Baku had no involvement whatsoever in the secret talks. The gatherings were a strictly private initiative organized entirely at the independent discretion of the participating delegations. The clarification follows media reports by Germany's ARD program Kontrast and Die Zeit, which said several prominent German politicians met Kremlin-linked figures in Baku and Abu Dhabi between 2024 and 2025 as part of unofficial back-channel contacts. The reports have sparked criticism in Germany over the meetings, which allegedly included a Russian official under EU sanctions. Okay, we'll be back after a short break with more on allegations from Armenia of voter bribes in June's elections. Don't go away. Welcome back. You are watching A News. Armenian authorities have launched a criminal investigation into allegations that voters were offered bribes to boost support for a political party at June's elections.
Armenia's Anti-Corruption Committee said on Monday that it had opened criminal proceedings over alleged electoral bribery involving supporters of the Strong Armenia party. The committee said party supporters, acting by prior agreement, had promised bribes to a group of voters in the Massis community of Ararat province in an effort to secure the highest possible number of votes for the party. Authorities said the evidence was obtained during joint operations by the Anti-Corruption Committee and the Yerevan City Police Department. The committee also released recordings linked to the investigation. In one conversation, the speakers discuss registering 4 people and finding rented accommodation in the village. Another exchange focuses on a group of voters and their participation in the election. The recording then appears to show a discussion about where the voters should be registered and how they should cast their ballots.
Look, you know what the thing is? If they have to vote, let them vote for the one we want. If not, that house is mine. I am not giving permission for them to come and participate in the elections at that address.
The Anti-Corruption Committee said several people had been detained. Searches and other procedural actions have also been carried out.
Armenian authorities have also opened criminal proceedings over alleged tax evasion at a business complex linked to the opposition Prosperous Armenia Party and its leader Gagik Tsarukyan. The State Revenue Committee says the Faro complex, which includes a hotel, restaurant and entertainment center, concealed around 300 million drams or $819,000 in turnover between 2025 and 2026. Investigators allege this resulted in 82 million drams in unpaid taxes. The case comes after Tsarukyan was arrested on July 7th on suspicion of fraud and money laundering. Law enforcement officers also searched his home and several business properties, some of which remain closed. Foreign investment in Uzbekistan continues to grow, with the number of companies backed by overseas investors surpassing 20,000 for the first time. New figures also show China further strengthening its position as the country's largest source of foreign businesses. Sevilla Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
Uzbekistan has reached a new milestone in attracting foreign investment. As of July 1st, the number of foreign invested companies operating in the country exceeded 20,500, marking a record high. That's almost a 23% increase compared with a year ago, according to the National Statistics Committee. China remains the largest source of foreign businesses in Uzbekistan, followed by Russia and Turkey. Meanwhile, Pakistan posted the fastest growth rate over the past year, with the number of its companies nearly doubling. Most foreign invested companies operate in trade and manufacturing, while the IT sector has now overtaken construction as a leading destination for overseas investment. The trend follows the recent Tashkent International Investment Forum, where investment agreements worth more than $43 billion were signed. Officials said the continued growth reflects rising international confidence in Uzbekistan's economic reforms and expanding business opportunities. It is Sivul Vajak reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan A News.
As we've been hearing, Pakistan's finance minister is in Washington to resume trade negotiations as Islamabad seeks lower tariffs on its exports and greater American investment. Let's now cross to Lahore and international relations analyst Tayyab Iftikhar, who's joining us to examine what can be expected of the talks. Tayyab, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on A News. What do you expect to be the first item on the agenda?
Thank you for having me on your show. And definitely, Ishaq Dar Saab has been very active. Our foreign minister, our finance minister, Ishaq Dar has been very active throughout these deals. I hope that Pakistan is able to get a good economic deal with the United States of America. Since the 28th of February 2026, Pakistan has been hugely affected by the war. Prices of almost everything has increased in Pakistan. So definitely President Donald Trump has signaled his liking for Pakistan from day one. Hopefully we will have something good on our part that we can show to our people. The government in Pakistan is facing heavy criticism due to high prices. And hopefully it would be very good for Pakistan that if an economic relief comes to the ordinary man on the street in Pakistan.
Well, you've mentioned there President Trump's sympathies for Pakistani officials he has been often praising. Pakistan is playing a major role in mediating the US-Iran war. How much can Islamabad expect from these talks given those circumstances?
Definitely, Donald Trump has shown his liking. His kind words have always been very good for the government of Pakistan. Definitely, it depends. United States of America is still a superpower. It's still a superpower. There are other powers that are trying to compete America, but America is a huge power. And definitely since 1947, ever since its creation, Pakistan has usually benefited from America in many ways. They have given us military aid, they have given us medical aid, they have given scholarship to students in Pakistan, they have funded other NGOs, other energy sector projects in Pakistan. So hopefully at this point of time when Pakistan has been able to bring Iran back and again to sit on the table with the United States of America, have a decent discussion, have a decent conversation, and mediation has take place. So definitely, hopefully Pakistan will get something good from Washington, D.C. It's not just Pakistan that has been having tariff issues with the United States of America. We all know very well that President Trump has shown his muscular strength economically. He has not only shown his muscular strength militarily, but he has shown his economic strength very much clearly to everyone. So definitely different countries around the world have come forward with their suggestions that how can trade be mutually beneficial for both the countries. Same goes for Pakistan, that definitely Pakistan would also offer something good to the United States of America. But America as a huge superpower, the main decision maker in many ways, can benefit Pakistan a lot.
Tayyab, Pakistan's delegation is also set to meet representatives of the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative as the country is facing an investigation by that office over alleged forced labor and related trade practices. Do you see that particular situation being cleared up during this visit?
Definitely, Pakistan has its own issues. I won't deny child labor, but the fact of the matter is definitely if there is sufficient amount of money in the home, people can send their kids to school. people can send their kids to school. School-going children will increase in Pakistan once parents have sufficient amount of money. Definitely, Pakistan has been contributing a lot in terms of sports items, in terms of other mercantile items. So mercantile items, sports items, Pakistan has been contributing, and it has been encouraging other countries to send their delegations to see how the workplace conditions are. So definitely, if Pakistan gets a good economic package, it can invest more on education sector, child labor cases can be stopped. Definitely, the United States of America being a superpower, being the main decision maker, it can help Pakistan in many, many ways. And Pakistan has shown its cooperation, like our Prime Minister, our Field Marshal, our Foreign Minister, Mr. Ishaq Dar Saab, he has been very active for the United States of America during this war. So definitely the United States of America can also lend a hand of friendship. It can also help us a lot in improving the education sector in Pakistan.
And Tayyab, we are running short on time, so please briefly, how much of the Trump administration's approach to Islamabad would you say depends on the geopolitical element as the US shifts more and more attention to the Indo-Pacific?
Definitely, that is a very valid question at this point of time when Pakistan is holding dialogue regarding economy. Skandar Momini, the Interior Minister of Iran, is in Pakistan right now. He will meet President Sayyid Asif Ali Zardari, Sayyid Asim Munir, the Field Marshal. He will meet Shehbaz Sharif. He's on the invitation of Interior Minister of Pakistan, Mohsin Naqvi. So definitely the Iranians have signaled that they are also willing for discussion, dialogue if the United States of America is. Definitely Pakistan is very beneficial for the United States of America. People don't know this in the current generation, but during even the Nixon times, Pakistan was very much able to bring China and America closer. It was able to bring down the walls between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. Even at this point of time, your question is relevant that definitely President Donald Trump can get a lot of help from us in the Middle East, and he can reward us economically as much as he wants.
Tayyab, thank you so much for joining us on A News and sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you.
And we're not going far. Transit trade between Afghanistan and Pakistan has reportedly fallen to its lowest level in years, dropping sharply during Pakistan's 2026 fiscal year. The decline comes as Afghanistan redirects more of its trade through Iran, Central Asia, and other international markets. Tamim Bahis has more.
Pakistani media report that the value of Afghan transit trade through Pakistan has fallen to just $367 million. Before 2021, the annual value stood at around $5 billion, with approximately 89,000 containers transported each year. In the latest fiscal year, however, that number reportedly dropped to about 11,600 containers. The figures represent a dramatic reversal from 2023, when more than 102,000 containers passed through Pakistan and the total value of transit trade reached $6.7 billion. The report identifies the closure of border crossings between Afghanistan and Pakistan, as well as Kabul's growing use of Iranian routes as major reasons for the decline. Afghan officials say the country had already begun reducing its reliance on Pakistan before the crossings were closed. Shafi Azam, head of the economic relations at Afghanistan's foreign ministry, says more than 60% of Afghan goods were previously destined for Pakistan. He says exporters are now reaching markets in Central Asia, Russia, China, India, the Gulf, and Europe through newly established trade corridors. Azam says border restrictions have accelerated Afghanistan's market diversification. He has urged Afghan businesses to improve product quality and packaging to meet international standards and remain competitive in these new markets. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Georgia's tourism sector earned about $107 million from Azerbaijani visitors in the first half of 2026. It marks a nearly 5% increase compared to the same period last year. According to the National Bank of Georgia, Azerbaijan ranked among the top 5 source markets for tourism revenue during the first 6 months of the year. The European Union, along with the United Kingdom, remained the largest contributor to Georgia's tourism, generating about $335 million, or 17.4% of the total tourism revenue for the first half of 2026. Russia followed in second place with $307 million, accounting for 15.9% of the sector's total revenue. The future of a renowned Mexican art collection, including works by its most celebrated painter, Frida Kahlo, has intensified the debate over the country's heritage. Campaigners fear private agreements could keep important works outside Mexico for unusually long periods of time.
Works from one of Mexico's most important private art collections are heading to Europe, intensifying a dispute over ownership and national heritage. The Modern Stories exhibition closed on Sunday in Mexico City after attracting more than 310,000 visitors since February. It presented 68 works from the 160-piece Gelman Santander collection, including 10 by famous Mexican painter Frida Kahlo. Film producer Jacques Gelman and his wife, art collector Natasha Gelman, assembled the collection. Works from it had not been shown in Mexico for 2 decades. In January, Spanish bank Santander announced a multi-year exhibition agreement. The tour will begin at Foro Santander in Spain before some Kahlo pieces join retrospectives in Switzerland and Norway. Critics say private owners bought part of the collection in 2023 with a bank loan and later pledged it to Santander as collateral. Some of those works are designated as artistic monuments and protected under Mexican law. For campaigners, the dispute goes beyond legal ownership.
The direction the world is heading is that pieces considered valuable and part of a society's heritage should remain in the place where they hold their greatest significance, where they were created, for the audience they were intended for, the country of those who created them. In that sense, the decisions of the INBAL and the Ministry of Culture go in the opposite direction. They go against the direction of the world.
Mexico's National Institute of Fine Arts and Literature, or INBAL, says courts confirmed the current owner's title. It says protected status does not affect ownership and permanent export is prohibited, making the tour temporary. Authorities say the collection will return in 2028 for an exhibition at Marco in Monterrey. Critics say that return does not settle its longer-term future. They cite a leaked agreement reportedly establishing an initial 5-year period abroad and allowing renewals without limit.
And reminding you of our breaking news once again, Azerbaijan has denied any official involvement in reported secret talks between German politicians and Russian representatives held in Baku. Sources close to the Azerbaijani government have confirmed to A News that official Baku had no involvement whatsoever in the secret talks. The gatherings were a strictly private initiative organized entirely at the independent discretion of the participating delegations. The clarification follows media reports by Germany's ARD program Kontrast and Die Zeit, which said several prominent German politicians met Kremlin-linked figures in Baku and Abu Dhabi between 2024 and 2025 as part of unofficial back-channel contacts. The reports have sparked criticism in Germany over the meetings, which allegedly included a Russian official under EU sanctions. Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.